Hello and welcome, Goshen Theater Drama Club members, friends, families, and Goshen Theater fans. This is Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks episode 10. Let me see those jazz hands. Oh my goodness, it's episode 10 today. We are talking about how to raise your voice, using your art as activism, and letting your perspective be seen through your art. We're very excited about today's episode. As always, we welcome our regular panelists, Miss Molly and Miss Katie.
Hello. Hi, friends.
And today, our special guest panelist is Mr. Paul Rigano from faraway New York City. Hello, Paul.
Pleasure to be here.
Is it true that they make salsa there in the New York City, that they make good salsa?
Yeah, yes. I always.
Okay.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, there was an old El Paso commercial back in the day where they all were just sitting around a campfire talking about their canned salsa, and they're like, "Where'd you make it? It's made in Texas. Texas salsa. Where's your salsa made?" Well, it says New York City, and everybody goes, "New York City."
I do remember that.
Old El Paso, if you're looking to sponsor a YouTube series.
We'll just keep mentioning people and see who picks us up as sponsorship.
This is great.
Oh, God.
Off the rails. I can't wait to see this episode.
We've already taken a swift left turn, folks.
Episode 10 is where we jump the shark, apparently. That's it. Took Happy Days 8 seasons. Took us 10 episodes.
Oh, I love it. Oh, my goodness. So, as always, before we begin our regular topic, we take your questions from last week. If you have a question that you would like us to answer, go ahead and message us on Facebook, the Goshen Theater Facebook page. You can send us a message directly, comment on this video, comment on the post on Facebook. And, if you're friends or see any of these beautiful public figures around me on Facebook, you could send them a question as well. They'd be happy to bring that along to our Table Talk filming. And, we'd be happy to answer those questions. So this week's first question, we're going to throw it over to Paul for this week's first question. What do you got, Paul?
This is a great question. I'm so excited about this one. I feel like I say that every week, but I mean it every week, darn it. What is the best movie about musicals to watch to learn about the theater while theaters are still closed? What a fantastic idea. First of all, what a great and noble pursuit. While we can't go to live theater, what do we do to learn more about the theater? Because I always find that understanding theater and theater history helps my enjoyment of the shows. It's not necessary at all. I loved many, many shows before I was a huge musical theater history nerd, but it does color my enjoyment now. So the first thing that popped into my head was a documentary series, actually. So you can watch like multiple episodes. I think it was like at least 4 or 5 part series, and each episode is like an hour. Back in the early 2000s, it was called Broadway, the American Musical. It was on PBS, and it was narrated by the one, the only, the legend, Julie Andrews. And it has just an amazing, amazing perspective about the roots of musical theater, where it came from, all the way back to vaudeville and minstrel shows, straight up through the golden age, through the nostalgia of the 60s and 70s and into the modern era. I jumped straight from the 60s and 70s into the modern era. Anyway, it's a great series. It has a lot of incredible interviews with the best and brightest that Broadway has to offer. I love it. I think it's so beautiful, and it makes my heart swell every time I watch it. Other than that, not to plug or anything, but I don't benefit from this at all. Broadway HD is an amazing resource for seeing live theater that you might not otherwise be privy to. The PBS app also has a lot of live performances, and they're releasing a lot of them for free right now because of the pandemic, excuse me. Broadway HD is basically Netflix for Broadway. You don't get everything, but it has a lot. It has the recent revival of She Loves Me, the Kiss Me Kate revival, not the one that was on Broadway in the early 2000s, but the one that went to London shortly after. It's the same production, different stars. It has The King and I, which I just watched the other night. Tons and tons of stuff. Old Hats, which is hilarious, and you should all see it. Broadway HD, check it out.
That's awesome. So I just looked up that Broadway documentary, and you can get more information on that documentary at pbs.org/WNET/Broadway. And we'll put that link in the description as well for you guys. Do you guys, Katie and Molly, do you have any favorites for like backstage movies or like other resources for folks to watch?
I will just say that the series that Paul is talking about, they used it in my college class for theater history. So like legit, you would know exactly what I know on theater history at that point.
A bachelor's degree in a documentary.
Maybe a little less.
Yeah, I really like, we had talked about this before the episode started, Paul. I really enjoy the like old golden age musicals. There's a bunch of like Rodgers and Hammerstein has a box set, and you can watch those. And I'm sure they're available online somewhere. There's also a lot of Lerner and Loewe musicals. There's about 50 versions of Showboat. What else?
Paul Robeson is the only one worth watching.
Yeah, I think too, one of the cool things is that if you guys have like a style of dance or kind of musical or an artist that you really like, there's probably some stuff that you could find for that particular artist or choreographer or composer or whatever. What do you think, Molly?
I was going to say, I know that the Globe in London, they're putting a lot of their performances on YouTube, the full productions. So if you subscribe to their YouTube channel, you can get like a notification of what shows are going up. I think I saw Macbeth was going up the other day. So if you like Shakespeare or classical theater, that's a good one. I know Hamilton is coming to Disney Plus on July 3rd. So if you have Disney Plus, that's another one that I thought of. But yeah, I also watched the documentary series that Paul was talking about in my musical theater history class. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, Paul.
I just thought of another one. If you are a fan of like the stuff that's on Broadway right now and don't necessarily want to go back and watch William Catt in Pippin, I get it, although it is phenomenal. But
So great.
A lot of shows, if it's learning about the theater and not just seeing theater that you're interested in, a lot of shows started doing this a few years back. I mean, we're talking, as much as 5 years of content going back with this now, is that shows will start doing video logs, vlogs of backstage. Like they have one cast member, it's usually someone who's, a supporting or an ensemble person who runs a vlog of just like the process of the show. I know Something Rotten did it, I believe. Yeah, they definitely did. Honeymoon in Vegas did it. There's so many, and they talk about the process. They start all the way back in the rehearsal room, straight up through tech week, and they show you what's going on, and then through the run of the show sometimes. They keep this video log going, and they're very funny and entertaining, and they frequently have interviews with stars or composers or big wigs.
So those are on YouTube, Paul?
All on the YouTube, yeah.
And after you subscribe to our channel, go and subscribe to some of those channels. See, like I was told that I need to start plugging like and subscribe because that's what YouTubers do.
We are influencers now.
Look at us. Look how influential we are. Oh, that was great. So there's a ton of resources out there, kids. If you want to learn more about Broadway and the stage and all of that, whatever you want to learn, there are resources and movies that you guys can watch while we're still quarantining. Who's the next question? Molly, what you got?
All right, this is a great question. My answer was in my head right away for this one. My question was, who's your favorite musical theater choreographer? My favorite of all time musical theater choreographer is Bob Fosse. If you've heard of the musical Chicago, Pippin, The Pajama Game, and many, many more. Bob Fosse became very, very famous for especially his style. It was a very specific style, lots of isolated movements, kind of like an all-knowing persona. My dog's name is Fosse because I love Bob Fosse so much. He's a little black toy poodle, and I try and get him to dance and turn in his toes, but I don't know if he knows how to do that yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. We've been working on it during quarantine. Bob Fosse is definitely my favorite. If you want to look him up on YouTube, I'm sure a lot of his dances will pop up. He has some famous stuff that's out there. There's a TV show that was made about him as well, but it's probably for a little bit of an older age group, depending on who's watching. Yes.
A lot of it older.
Yeah, watch his dancing. That's my favorite thing that he does.
After you guys vote for president for the first time, watch the show about Bob Fosse. Yes, very good. What else do we have? Paul, Katie, do you guys have favorite dance styles, favorite choreographers? I love Bob Fosse too. I think he's great.
In terms of the like current who's like doing it now, I'm a huge fan of Casey Nicholaw, who is a director and choreographer, and Sergio Trio, who just won a Tony for Ain't You Proud on Broadway. He is fantastic.
That Tony's performance is on fire. It is so good.
Yeah. Those two names came to my mind.
Katie, what do you think?
Well, my favorite style is tap. I get a kick out of tap. So, but yeah, Fosse was my favorite to learn about in dance history. Like within my dance classes in college, when we did sections on Fosse, he was the most interesting to me because he was so precise. You had to be right with the movement. Otherwise it wasn't right. Like you had to be precise about it. And I just really enjoyed it.
Miss Katie, we can tell you're in Chicago today.
Yeah, I'm in Chicago and I live close to a fire station, y'all. Sorry.
And Katie, Fosse did tap. I mean, he started as a, classically trained, all that stuff, and then developed his own style. There's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know who else?
Madam.
Oh, that's right. Do you know who else I really like is Agnes DeMille, because she brought modern dance and ballet into the musical theater and dance as a storytelling forum, because she was the first one to bring the ballet into musicals. And gosh, what show was that? Was it Oklahoma first?
Yeah.
So there's in Oklahoma, in the movie and in the stage musical both, there is a section that Agnes DeMille choreographed that is its own story. And it's told all through dance, no singing, no dialogue. So that's, I love that innovation. And it seems, if you kids are familiar with the word trope, it means like sort of a stereotype of things that people do to tell stories. It's sort of a trope now that you have like a ballet that tells a separate story, but she was really an innovator when she came up with that idea. So I think that's really cool. We have one more question, Miss Katie.
We've got, I want to be a drama teacher. How can I get involved in teaching while I'm still a kid? Which I think is an amazing question. I can just tell you what I did as a child. First of all, you explore all aspects within the realm. Like if you want to perform, explore that. If you want to dance, perform that, do that, singing, but also explore all the backstage aspects of it. Explore stage management, because that'll help you a lot in the long run. Be a stagehand, help out with costuming, whatever it is. The more you know about just the world of theater, the better off you'll be when you go to teach it later. But also, I don't know if you're a performer, but if you are, one of the things I used to do was I would choreograph for the younger kids who were in show choirs at the middle school and elementary school. And even when I was in middle school, I was choreographing for elementary kids. My Girl Scout troop used to do performances with after school groups where we would do little fairy tale skits for them, and then help them write their own little fairy tale skit. So it's really about just volunteering your time as much as possible and just helping anyone and everyone. Talk to your teachers at school, ask them, hey, I want to be involved. I don't know how. I did that one time in college. I was about to go into my senior year of college without having a main stage performance under my belt for a musical. I'd had a straight play, but I hadn't had a musical. And I was so concerned because I didn't end up getting the part I was up for that end of that semester before I would start my senior year. And I just reached out to the director and I said, here it is. I need to know how a professional setting works. I need to know what to expect. I want to help. I don't know where you need help. I don't know if you have a student director yet. I don't know what you have, but I want to be there, even if it's just to observe, whatever. And she came back and said that was a great idea. And then I ended up being like the most random thing. They ended up creating a title for me because I was doing a lot backstage for the show and stuff. So like, it's really just finding your own opportunities to learn and asking those around you who are in a position of leadership how you can help. And the more you know, the better off you'll be when you go to teach it later on.
Yeah, I love that. I think too, it sort of ties into what we were talking about last week and several other previous episodes about having a good attitude, being cheerful, and learning as much as you can. Volunteer for stuff. If you put it out there and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this, a lot of times people will meet you more than halfway, especially in your youth. It gets harder to do when you get to be a grown-up because grown-ups.
Yep.
Other thoughts, like when you guys have wanted to get into leadership roles, Paul and Molly, what sort of things did you do when you were kids?
I feel like when I was in a show, even if I didn't specifically have a leadership role, but if I like just wanted to help out more, I would always kind of be the person to make sure I was like writing down all the choreography and just like had the information. So if other people were like, hey, what's this move? I could be like, oh, I actually have it written down. Just so like helping out the people in your cast too, if you're in a show. That's a good way. And directors take note of that. So if they see that you're able to help in a like very supportive way, not in a way that's, I don't know what the right word is, but you should never like give another actor notes or anything like that. But if you're working together as a team and you're a natural leader and those types of things, directors will see that and then they might ask you to step up into a leadership position or help in this area of the show, and you just never know. So yeah, it's just important to always be cheerful, always be prepared. That's a really, really big one. And yeah, find those opportunities for yourself because sometimes you have to make them, and that's something beautiful will come out of that.
Yeah. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, speaking to what Miss Molly just said, I have actually choreographed myself a bit. And I was choreographing a production of Anything Goes at a high school, and I noticed that one of the kids was just really on top of it. And when kids had a question, they came to her. And so I approached her and I said, Kiri, you seem to really be a strong dancer, and you clearly know the choreography very well. Would you be interested in being my dance captain? And she leapt at that opportunity. I think in general, if you were to approach anyone in a leadership position and say, hi, I am very interested in this and would love to be of any help to you that I can't see anyone who would turn that down. Any kind of assistant or helper is monumental. It makes our job so much easier. So do not be afraid to really take initiative on those things.
Can I say that like the impulse for us to pass on our knowledge is so strong. So if you show interest in something, we're going to be super excited about it. Like, y'all, we are so excited to talk to you and pass our knowledge on to you that we started a TV show. Here we are. So that we could just talk at you. That's it. Table talk at you. So yeah, ask, put yourself out there and say, hey, you know, I want to be more like you when I grow up. How do I do that?
Ooh, yeah, butter them up before
Yeah.
you ask. Ooh, you'll get them every time. You know, I really admire your work, and I really just, like, every time it will work, guys, I promise. Okay, come here.
Come here, kid.
Come help me. Come be my friend.
Let's be on the Broadway.
Let's do it.
Take this world by storm.
Ah. I'm going to get my kids out. Sorry.
I'll just slip into our transatlantic. I love it.
It's true.
And our Mama Rose.
Well, my transatlantic is my Mama Rose.
There you go.
It's a show called Gypsy Kids. It's a musical. It's pretty good. It's got some amazing children's roles in it, in fact, including Balloon Girl. She's in one scene, but it's delightful.
I mean, she's kind of the catalyst for the entire show.
She is. She is Balloon Girl. A friend of mine in college got her equity card because she was Balloon Girl on Broadway at 8.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, you want to have your equity card at 8. Anywho, those are your questions for this week. Keep those questions coming. We don't get a chance to really answer all the questions that we get. Some weeks we get more than others, and sometimes like it'll be a couple weeks before we can get to a question. So if we had a lot on a particular week. So keep those questions coming. If you haven't heard your question answered, you can re-ask it, or maybe we'll get to it. You never know. So today's episode is about taking your journey, your perspective, and your voice and creating art with it. Miss Katie this week has called this activism through art, which I really
Artist
like.
of the world.
Yeah. So that's one of the great things about being in the arts is that we have new tools, different tools than just talking about it to people to convey our ideas, thoughts, and feelings. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, some of the best ways that I have learned in my life have been through observing and taking part in art. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the creative process and how to get started. So I think one of the first things to do, everybody's got a unique perspective, and everybody has, like everybody who's watching this, has a form of art that is their medium. And some people have a few different ideas or things that they like to do. The first thing to sort of decide in my mind is what kind of project do you want to do? Do you want to do something that's just an outlet for your thoughts and feelings? That's just something personal for you? Or do you want to do something that can bring your thoughts and feelings and your unique perspective to an audience? So yeah, what are people's thoughts? Like have you guys done projects that were just for you, like small things that are just about you nurturing yourself as an artist? And then like, have you guys done those sorts of projects before?
Yeah, for sure. Journaling was pretty big for me in college, especially as I was learning more and more about my craft and how to hone my craft. And it was just a way to keep track of all the information, but also like to keep track of how I wanted to use it and in my everyday life and just what it meant to me, what breakthroughs I had. My professors used to tell us all the time to keep a journal because you're going to want it down the line, and you will. Like always, if you're a writer, like try and keep a journal as much as possible. I fall short on it. I'll write for a while and then I'll be like, I don't want to do it anymore. And then like
if you're any kind of artist, keep a journal, not just writers.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I'm kind of bad at journaling. Like I am. I will straight up say it. Like I'm kind of bad at it. I don't make it an everyday habit like I probably should. When I do it, I always feel great about it. But I don't do it often enough. So journaling's a good one.
Miss Molly, have you ever done a project that was just something for you? Get your thoughts and feelings out.
I never really talk about this or share it very much, but every once in a while I really enjoy writing songs and playing the piano and singing songs I've written. I never really made it a big thing in my life because that creativity for that only came to me at certain points, or maybe there was something that I was dealing with in my life that it just made a lot of sense. It really helped me to work through that part of my life through writing a song and playing and writing. So that being said, I think I've written 3 to 4 songs ever. And I never wanted that to become something that was necessarily a part of my career because it was so much just for me and I didn't want to put the pressure on it to make it be anything other than that. But that those songs, whenever, if I go back and sing them, I'm I know exactly what was going on in my life when I wrote this, or I know exactly what inspired me to write this. And it's kind of cool to see where I am now, because some of the songs I wrote in high school. So, but yeah, it's still really fun. I really enjoy doing it. During quarantine, one of my friends and I, we tried to write a song together where she wrote the lyrics and then I put it together with music and harmonies. And we worked on it a bunch. It's not quite a finished product, but we wrote a song together. So it's just fun. It's definitely something that's just for me that I love. Yeah.
Paul, do you ever do any projects that are just for Paul?
Yeah, I love what Miss Katie said about journaling. I actually have a whole musical journal full of terrible ideas. And a couple of gems in there, but it's mostly just scribbles that, go back as far as early college, where I'd be sitting in class and I'd get an idea and I'd have to scribble it down. Don't tell my teachers. But yeah, I find that it's like what Miss Katie says. If you're a writer, journaling is so helpful because it you can draw on that later. I know last week I talked about the first song that I wrote was about heartbreak. I had my heart broken again a couple of years ago, and like sat down to write a song that I didn't want to share with anybody, and I just wrote it just to get my own thoughts out, and to figure it out. And weirdly enough, a couple weeks later, I was having some trouble writing a song, and I drew on musical ideas that I had thought up in that song, put them in a completely different context, and it's a comedic song, and it's up tempo, and it's fun. But I found that so interesting that I just used that motivation. I just used art to get my thoughts out because I didn't know how else to express them. So I do a lot of musical art making that obviously it's my work, but I do it a lot of times that's just for myself, for my own health, and to feel good. I like doodling. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, of course.
But I really like. I've always been a fan of the visual arts and very impressed by people who can do it very well. And I do not consider myself one of them, but I like trying to better myself in that way, only for myself.
Paul, I love my favorite part of your story and your share that we just had is that you took a tragic piece of art that you made for yourself and you turned it into a snappy little up tempo.
That is the Paul RIGANO story.
That's wonderful. And yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I love it. So yeah, I think that for me, sometimes like I'll just put stuff out. Like sometimes I'll put on some music and just dance, or I'll sit down and just play something on the piano and just like let the creativity flow. Or sometimes I really like to get like oil pastels or paints and just put something on canvas and just let it go. It's a good outlet for how I'm feeling. It's a good way for me to express feelings that I don't necessarily want to share with everybody, because sometimes we have negative thoughts or feelings that need to get out somehow, but they don't need to be aimed at anybody. So it's sometimes good to get those out. The thing that I found too, and that you guys have really alluded to, is that we will use those thoughts and ideas that are kind of raw and turn them into something more refined later. I think it's a good habit to have, to express yourself through your art, even if it's not for other people all the time. And because yeah, you're not in France, right? But if you want to learn how to speak French, you're going to practice when you're not in France yet. You're going to you're going to do exercises on your own. You're going to speak French by yourself. Then maybe sometimes you'll speak French with other people. And then maybe when you go to France, you'll speak French. So if you are becoming an artist, you have to practice the language of art by yourself and then practice it with other people before you go to Artland.
Ooh, I like that. Artland.
Artland.
Is there an Artland? Can we go there?
Park.
You're there, Katie. This is it.
Oh my gosh, it's in my mind.
It is. You've been there the whole
The
time.
roller coaster of emotions.
So I think it's great to have those projects that are just for you. And if you guys are having thoughts or feelings right now about all the things that are happening in the world, because there's so much happening and the world is changing in so many ways, for the good and the bad, all of these things are happening and we're all processing a lot. It is never a bad idea to practice the language of art concerning stuff like this, and make a couple projects for yourself and, let your voice be heard. On paper or on the canvas or in movement, however you want to do it, and practice the language of expressing yourself through art. So let's talk about trying to share your unique perspective through art. I think one of the things in the creative process that I like to do is to just dump my ideas onto a piece of paper. Do you guys do that? Just like the creative dump. And like, what are some of the methods you guys have used to just like get your thoughts out? Like I've written single words on pieces of paper for ideas and thoughts I've had, or like journal entries or sentences. Do you guys have, what are your creative dump ideas just to get it out?
I love the word cloud.
Oh,
Talking about just dumping ideas, but like, for example, I was starting a musical a couple years back, and I just had to get a sense of the shape of it. And so I wrote the main character's name in the middle and drew a circle around it. And then I drew a branch off, and that was her best friend character's name. And then I drew a branch off of that because there were things attached to that. And it was, for me, I'm a big visual person. So like to see the shape of how things affect each other and how people affect each other and how they're related to one another and how their feelings may have parallels, that to me, the visualization, and it also reminds me of what's important when I'm writing. If I want to write even if it's not in a show where I have to come back to a central idea, if I'm writing a song and I want my song to be about Burmese mountain dogs, I will start with that in the middle. And if I get onto some tangential thing, I might forget that I always have to be writing about Burmese mountain dogs. If you want to write a song about that particular breed. If you're writing about Rottweilers, that's fine. Anyway.
excellent.
Did not get the
I
reaction.
don't know how to segue out of it.
How do we segue out of Burmese mountain dogs? Speaking of Rottweilers, it has been a while since we heard from Miss Molly.
I was like, because I have my idea, and I was like, how does this connect to the dogs? But well, dogs, my dog's name is Fossy, and I want to talk about dancing, so I guess it connects. So
There you go.
yeah, I have lots of choreography on the mind right now. I'm currently prepping a bunch of choreography for Drama Club for all of you, and also for the upcoming season at the Round Barn Theater. So like there's lots of things that are kind of starting for me in the next week. So for me, almost the hardest part is starting, because when I listen to the music, or like it's easy for me to come up, I think, with the vision of like either the show or the dance, or like I'll obviously know like what the style is based on the music that I'm given. But the initial, like, what is the first move of the song? That is always the hardest for me. So I do what Miss Amber was saying earlier. I'll put on the song, and I was literally doing this right before this table talk. I'll put it on, and I'll just start dancing and moving, and sometimes it makes no sense, but every once in a while I'll do something that just kind of spontaneously is inspired from the music, and I'll be like, like I want to have that in there. And once I have that first move, it all comes from there. So just getting up and starting and going, like taking action on those creative ideas, even if you don't know what it's going to be, that always really helps me, especially with dance, but in other aspects, like what Paul was saying with writing as well. I think it's similar to, putting all the thoughts down on paper.
Yeah, part of the thing with dance as a form of communication outside of the context of theater is that you have the ability to tell a story using your dance, but there's so many other storytelling elements that go into it, just like a play. You have light and sound and the piece of music. And for me, with like dancing in particular, normally my inspiration starts with the piece of music and how I can make that piece of music communicate the idea that I'm trying to get across. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that, like there is that first move thing. And for me, it always starts with like that musical content and how I can make that say what I want it to say. I have a good friend in college who she had this feeling of being insignificant. So she wrote a dance, and I think it was some Bach piano pieces that she put it to, where she compared herself to laundry. So it was her in a laundry basket, because she felt like she was insignificant, like she was something that people just took off when it suited them, like that she was their friend, and like she had this whole idea for it, but she was like comparing herself to laundry, and she did a whole dance based on that with the laundry basket and the Bach. But like you can communicate an idea that complex using just the movements of your body. I think that's really cool.
So inspiring.
Yeah, exactly. Miss Katie, what do you think? What are you like, free writing, brainstorming?
Yeah, so it just kind of depends on what kind of project I'm working on. So in college, I was on my way to get a screenwriting certificate. I'm still one class out. I've never gone back to do it. It's fine. But within that time, I mean, it spanned over about 2 years that I went to go get it. And I wrote one premise for a horror film and a full script for a rom-com. And the horror film was based on an urban legend that I remember hearing as a child. And I based it in my hometown because I knew the setup. And some of the characters were based on friends that I had at the time. And then like my rom-com was literally at the time, not now, at the time would have been what I thought I wanted out of life, and how I would have seen my own story in. So it was self-serving, in the fact that once it was on paper, because I knew that wasn't the outcome that my life was going to get, guys. I knew. But like it was therapeutic in a way to like just have it. Like it's out there, it'll never happen. But the process of doing it, like the critiquing process with my peers, the writing process itself was just so phenomenal. Like literally just writing my mind. And one of the comments I always got was, your characters seem so real and the dialogue is so easy, like to follow. And like, I really connected to it. I was like, that's because it's my life, guys. It's my life. I don't know if you know. So you write what you know. But for like camp process, when I do my camps, when I'm picking the material that I want the students to use for their performance specifically, I literally will just go through and make a huge library list of every show that has anything remotely that could be used for a child. And then from there, I just listen all the way down that list. And from there, I wheedle it down to the things that really stick out to me. And I'm going to be real honest with you guys. It usually ends up being whatever the climate around me is, whatever the message I feel my kids really need to hear, which is usually something inspiring, like be yourself and be proud to be yourself and like go out and do good in the world. That's usually the message that it breaks down to. And like, that's how the pieces come together. And somehow there's always a through line. I'm still not sure how I managed to do it, but there's usually a through line with the stuff that I pick. And in the past, I've written like scenes to go with it to make it all flow into one show and whatnot. So like, there's that process with podcasts, with our table talk. I mean, we just wanted to fill a hole. We knew that schools weren't in session like normal. We knew parents were probably needing a little extra help to keep their kiddos busy and doing something useful. And we knew we had knowledge that we could share. We may not be experts in our field, but we are in our field and we live it on the ground level and we have experiences to share. And if any of that's useful to someone, like we want to do it. So like our podcast was literally like, well, do you guys want to come talk about this? And we're like, yeah, what are we going to talk about next week? And like, that's how it always goes. And it's just so interesting because we come on with an outline of what we think we're going to talk about, but then we just feed off of each other, guys. Like, just talk to your friends. Be creative with your friends. So that's where I'm at.
Miss Katie, do you know what I want to see?
What?
I want to see a screenplay written about your life now, about a woman writing the ideal version of what she thinks she wants her life to be as a rom-com screenplay. Right. So like you play both characters. So you play like the idyllic version of yourself in like, I don't know, flat front khaki trousers and a pink sweater set. Like it's a rom-com. So you play that version of yourself, and then you also play like the version of your true story in real life. And the process of your art is the process of you writing the screenplay and then how your viewpoint changes. I mean, maybe
I'll do it, Amber, because I've been wanting to get back into screenwriting more and more these days. So maybe I'll do it.
That idea is free.
Thank you. I'll give you credit.
Oh, thanks.
I'll give you credit.
Miss
The concept by.
You inspired. Well, first of all, that was just so well spoken. So I thought that was great. Also,
oh my gosh, words I never thought would come towards my ears.
When I was 12, I thought that I was a superhero, and I tried to write a book about it. It was this whole fictional story, but all the characters were like me and my friends and stuff like that. And I got about 30 pages in, And I contacted a publisher that I found online, and I was like, hi, I'm 12 and I'm writing this book. My plan was that this book would be published, I would finish it, then there would be a movie of it, I would later star in the movie, and that would be like my career for my life.
Right.
But yeah, that was a passion project for a very long time, and you reminded me of it when you were talking about your screenplays, which are probably much more well written than the strange book I tried to write when I was 12.
It did go through a lot of rewrite process. It did go through a lot of rewrites.
Molly, I would like you to bring your screenplay to the table, and then we'll all like help refine the process, because this is another step of the process that we're talking about too. You know, another fun way to do like how to express yourself doing this as a performer, and this is something that I've done several of these, is to put on a cabaret.
Ooh.
So gather songs that other people have written that you really relate to. Pick a topic, and you could pick any of the topics, like the things that are happening now. You could pick like isolation and what that feels like, or your life being interrupted. That's a really good topic of like gathering other artists' work, because there are plenty of like songs in those contexts. What's another good one? Like feeling like your voice isn't heard, or being angry about some of the things that are happening. There are plenty of songs, and you also have very subtle emotions about all of these issues. So there's negative, positive emotions. Write down those emotions and find songs that fit those emotions, and then tell your story of why you relate to the song and sing the song, and give it a clever title, and there's your cabaret. But you can do it with just like an hour of material, and that's a really good fleshed out cabaret.
Yeah, I do a ton of cabaret work. I love it.
Yes.
I'm also a composer. The music is usually stuff, it's a showcase of stuff that I've written. But I do cabarets of other people's work on a theme, like Miss Amber was saying, or I've helped other people. A friend of mine is currently developing one, and I'm helping him with that. You talked about the clever title. He's talking about his journey to working in the theater, because he kind of always wanted to do it but avoided it for a while because he thought it wasn't practical or whatever. And when he finally dove in head first, things really took off because he's very, very talented. And so it's kind of his journey to finding his place in the art world. And the title is, If I'm Up Here, Something's Gone Horribly Wrong.
I have a friend who is always the reliable guy, like always. And he had a cabaret, and I think it was called You Can't Do It Alone. And as people were seating, he played the stage manager. So he had a headset on, and then he would loudly get telephone calls from the bartender. So the phone would ring and the bartender would be like, it's for you. And he had somebody at an apartment at specific times calling the phone at the bar. So he would answer the phone loudly, and it would be all the other people that were supposed to be in the cabaret, which were all mixed up versions of his own name. And all like pictures of him photoshopped to look like different people. So there was like 6 cast members, and all of them called off. So it was just a cabaret of all these people calling off and like canceling last second. So yeah, it was all about how like I can't do it alone. Cabaret of Friends is what the title was, and then it just ended up being him by himself. My favorite bit that he did was, and this is the Beatles medley that we do that ends with, I get by with a little help from my friends. So we're going to skip this one. It was really funny. But yeah, you can get a creative idea and basically do anything. And I think in today's world, as things are chaotic, one of the things that helps me is to like organize my thoughts and feelings in such a way so that I can present them to other people. Cabaret is a really evocative, like that means inspires a lot of emotions, evokes emotions, a very evocative way to let your thoughts and feelings be heard, but without having to do too much on the authorship side if you're not into that yet. If performance and interpretation of other people's material is your art form, then cabaret is a good way to also let that viewpoint be heard. What else? What do we think?
I mean, kind of like what, oh, sorry, Bob, go ahead.
No, I've been speaking way too much again.
I was just going to say real quick, in college, we had an alumni who came back and did her one-woman show that she created and wrote, and everything was taken on tour. And it reminds me of your cabaret story for your friend, because I mean, it was a full show, like hour or so long, and like it's just her by herself. She played many characters, and it was just so interesting to see. I'd never seen a one-woman show done, or one-man show either. So,
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy fun. It's a lot of good work. And I've done quite a few cabarets, and it has sort of like years ago, it inspired me to write some of my own shows for educational theater, which Paul is actually helping me work on. Eventually, we're going to refine one of my educational shows into something a little more polished. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. It's going to be great. Maybe some songs. Maybe some songs. We have to find the why. Like, what do we want to say and why? That's what we're looking for right now. So one of the things that I think is super important, and this is one like segueing into the next step here, one of the things that I like to do is talk to a friend of mine about a journey that is similar to my journey that they've had. Like women in theater, there's a lot of common ground of things that we've all kind of gone through to different degrees. But sometimes someone will have a perspective that you don't have, or that you don't like, that isn't part of your journey. So it's not the first thing that you would think of. But one of the things I like to do is take my idea to a trusted friend and say, hey, what's your journey like with this? And trust them enough to see if they would be willing to help you, like by sharing some of their perspective. And then you can fold their ideas and thoughts into your initial idea. What do you guys think of that? Have you ever done anything like that?
Yes. I feel like having a close-knit circle of friends that you trust who are artists or appreciate art or are willing to talk about art is really, really important. The times that I have felt the most creative in my life, I've been surrounded by very kind, caring people who are creative in the same way and extremely supportive of my own creativity. So like maybe that could even be a parent. Like I know for me, like the other three people in these boxes are very much those types of people in my life as well. So I totally agree. I don't have any specific stories. I just think it's really important. Yeah.
As someone who writes musicals, it's incredibly important to me that I create shows that actors are comfortable in, that they understand, and that they want to do. So one of the most valuable things that I do in every creative process is I get a few people together and I read the thing. I used to, well, I'm still technically, the company still exists, but we used to, this a theater company that I work with used to do a series called Dinner Table Talk Reads. Was that it? I think that was it. And it was, everyone would bring a pot, it was a potluck. Everyone would bring a dish and one person brought a script. We'd have dinner and then we'd read the play. And then the actors would give feedback. And it was really great to have actors who were also well-versed in other disciplines and could say, well, this could be tricky for your costume designer or whatever. But it's so important to hear that, also to know that the thing works, that what you think and have put into words, that other people read those words and think the same thing, that it, does that make sense? And that it's comfortable for them. That it's, I mean, that's more of a singing thing, that like, oh, could you sing that? Does that make sense? And that adds another layer to it, because singing you kind of have to rehearse. We just did a table read a couple of weeks ago with a show that I wrote, which we learned from that table read that we had to cut an entire song and rewrite it. So yeah, the more people, I used to be terribly, very like, play the cards close to my vest with my art. I was a control freak. I had a very specific idea, and I thought if I get it right, it's going to be right. And the more that I work in this industry, the more that I learned that I need other people, whether I'm writing with them because ideas will bounce ideas off of each other, or just hearing what people think, as like Miss Molly said, people that you're close with, that you trust, and that understand that what they're seeing is a work in progress.
Yeah, it can be scary to bring people in when something is still raw or not exactly what you want it to be, because you have to be vulnerable. You have to trust that they're not going to be judgmental, which is very scary. What about you, Miss Katie? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Paul.
I mean, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Well, just that you need to be ready for that criticism and shed that ego a little bit. Have that thick skin and understand that when they give you critique, that it is not a comment on you personally or their value as a human or an artist. Yeah,
or if you want support only, communicate that. Say like, hey, I need some supportive comments because I'm feeling a little bit insecure about my piece of art. If you say, hey, can you just like watch this and just be a pair of eyes that has watched it? And I don't want any critical feedback. I just want some support and to know that someone's here with me. If you need that, let them know ahead of time. Learned that the hard way. What were you going to say, Miss Katie?
I was just going to say very much what Paul literally just said. Like in college, when I was doing the screenwriting, we shared with our peers. You had a writing group that you were assigned every week. And within that group, you would read your new pages one at a time. Other people would be reading for you so you could listen and actually hear how things were falling. You weren't as in it. You've got to remove yourself a little bit. I think like Paul was saying, he played it really close to the chest. I think removing yourself from the project just to hear it and to see it on its feet is so important to the process of getting it right. And so like with that, these were strangers. I had never worked with them necessarily, but we were all in the same class and we all had the same goal. We wanted to make our projects the best projects they could be. So we were like-minded in that fact. With camp stuff, I usually have assistant directors or artistic directors that I'll send materials to, choreographers, Miss Molly, and our music director, Juan Carlos, I was sending it to the whole team, like, what do you guys think? Here's how I wheedled it down. Like, what other input do you guys have? Like, what do you think? Because here's the thing. I don't want to politicize what I'm having my kiddos do, because it's not about politics. It's about building up my kids so that they are strong in a world that will try and tear them down sometimes. So I want them to be strong and I want them to be inspired and I want them to know that they have a safe place here within camp. And so I always want to double check myself because I'm a very outspoken human. I want to make sure that I'm not like pushing the wrong idea. And that it really is just about inspiring my kids to be strong, So talking to those closest to you, talking to those who are going to have to be a part of that process with you is so important to get their take on it because they're also part of that process. They're the ones, Molly is going to be the one who has to choreograph the numbers that I was choosing. Like she has to deal with my choice. So I wanted her to be a part of the choice. But like for the podcast, it's literally just us talking. Like, we just share and we have disagreements. Paul and I have been like, well, here's what I think. But like we literally we respect each other so much and we've worked with each other. Molly, this is the first time I'm working with you is through Table Talks and Drama Club. But like with Amber and Paul, we already had a standing relationship, right? And I trust them wholeheartedly. Like they've been my peers, they've been my bosses, like they've been my leaders. And I trust them to help me in my creative process. So I hope they trust me to help them within theirs. So like, yeah, I don't know if any of that made sense. That was long again.
It did. I loved it. So the next sort of thing that I like to do is I like to keep my thoughts organized. And no matter what medium I'm working with, like we all have our specializations, but we all dabble. We're dabblers, right? So I like to chart out or outline the thing that I want to, like the piece of art. So I don't know if we have any photographers that watch or people who do any kind of rendering or sculpture, perspective, line, like chart out how you want the composition of your piece to be and what composition or color is best going to tell your story. So charting that out before you begin is a really good way to plan and make sure that you're communicating the thing that you want to communicate, particularly with photography. So much of photographs is like being in the right place at the right time. And especially right now, there's so much to photograph. There have been so many evocative is the word of the day, things that evoke or inspire emotions that are strong. There have been many, many evocative photographs that I have seen over the past couple of months, from empty spaces to people at protests to instances of even like brutality. But then there's also beautiful things like photographs of renewed waterways or wildlife in urban areas. These things are really timely, but they also communicate a thought or feeling. And if photography is your medium, you're probably ready for these instances to occur. It is so important before you go out to seek out the things that will communicate what you want to communicate, to have some composition in mind. And so that you can frame your shot, because you have like a fraction of a second to get it right. So, charting out the composition of your photograph, or charting out what sort of photograph that you want to do. There's so much that you can do in post as well when you're editing, but it's the same thing with painting or with sculpture or like whatever medium that you're using as a visual artistic medium, sewing or design or any of that stuff. So make a chart, or like make a, like, however, whatever makes sense to you spatially or visually, to help chart out the composition of your piece of visual art. What else, like for a song, Paul, when you're writing a song, do you ever chart out like the structure of how you want things to run, or what kind of thoughts, like, I'm going to do the idea here, and then this section is going to be about this, and then?
Absolutely. I'll also say that as, like I said, as a visual person, like I've done things where I was like, I want this song to kind of sound like a drop of water. Like the sound I want is the shape of a whatever. I've done things where I just draw like giant slashes of like, this is the general shape of this character, and that it helps me. But yeah, I am working on a song right now that we knew we wanted to start with a verse, and this is something that, again, my collaborator and I just have a very good shorthand because we've been writing together for a long time. But we started with a verse. We knew we wanted to do 2 verses before a chorus because we had a lot to say to build to the chorus. And we were just starting the chorus, and we were stuck, and we didn't know where we wanted to go. And we said, okay, well, what happens next? And we plotted out the rest of the structure of the entire song. And that is what ultimately unlocked the chorus. And it took 3 or 4 different choruses before we found it, but we got it. And now we just have to write the rest of the thing. And we have a roadmap. We know where we're going.
Do you use a method like this, Molly, when you're doing choreography, or if you have to evoke a specific idea?
Yeah, I feel like I do even a lot when I'm playing a role in a show.
Oh, yeah.
There's like so much research and like just really letting the given circumstances of the character in the show sink in before I even start necessarily working with the other actors. And it depends on, how soon I get the material and when I know, but when I know who I'm playing in a show or something like that. But there are certain shows that are set in a certain time period, so it's really helpful to me to like watch documentaries about that time period, really learn about like what life was like during that time. I've mentioned the spelling bee show I was in many times, but I remember when I was in that, like we would sit down and we would watch kids who go to the National Spelling Bee and like what they do to prepare for that and what it's like for them in that process. It's really cool just to like study human nature of different types of people who do different things and in different circumstances, because that's what acting is. It's like shows so much of the real world around. So yeah, I feel like a lot of my process comes from that and like immersing myself in different ideas even before like the work starts or the rehearsal starts or that type of a thing.
Miss Kitty, do you have a concrete process? Like, you've talked a little bit about like your selection process and how that goes into it.
I think I always try and pick music first when it comes to directing camps and like creating their cabaret show type situation. Like, I think I always take time to find the music first, because that's something I can't personally do. I can't write music. I can sing music, but I can't write it. So like I research what music speaks to me the most, and then I see I can find plot points within the show that I'm creating within the music that I've chosen. So then it's all about writing that through line with the scenettes that I create myself to make it a cohesive thing and to have it have a through line and a story. So I think it's like, for me, once I have those major plot points, like even if it's not music, like if I'm writing a screenplay, I know what major plot points I need to have. And then it's all about, for me, filling in the rest of the puzzle along the way to those plot points. For me, it's like a map.
Yeah, I think that's great. There's so many things that have something in common too. Like when you're writing poetry, for example, it's so similar to writing a lyric. And it's like two different formats of the same thing, like using communication. But then like color is something that's so universal, or movement, like all of these tools that we have, you might unlock other ideas through the process of planning your piece. Like you might think, okay, I want to write a poem about this feeling or thought that I'm having. And, you know, through these steps that we've gone through doing organization and figuring out what it looks like, and sharing it with a friend. When you share it with a friend, it could unlock a song. You never know what's going to come of it from actually doing some pre-work. I think one of the other things that Molly, what you just said reminded me of this, that research of your perspective can actually be extremely helpful. Like, I know that with the pandemic and the isolation that we've all been experiencing, if you're having thoughts or feelings about that and you wanted to express that, there have been other times in history when people have been isolated on a large scale, and researching other times in history when that's happened. Like with the marginalization and police brutality, those things have been occurring throughout history. So there is research that you could do to bring your perspective to life, or to flesh out the experiences of others, not just your friends and your contemporary people, but people who have experienced similar circumstances throughout history. But yeah, like researching the time period of the role that you're about to play is so important, and the world around where you're going to be. So yeah, that research aspect is something I didn't think about until you just said that, how you can unlock new ideas by thinking about things that have happened in the past.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it too. That was more well articulated than what I said even.
That was more well articulated. Oh, Molly, you're so like generous with the comments and the compliments today.
I just, I'm thankful for all of you and for this process. So,
oh, that's beautiful. So after the planning stage, I think the next thing that you got to do is like do the work, right? Like actually do the project. I know that sometimes that's the hardest part. I sometimes procrastinate, which is terrible. But doing the work once you've planned it out, it's almost like, I know that when I'm working on something and I've done a lot of planning and I've done a lot of research and I have like there's something to it, like there's something that I really want to say. Beginning the work is what I've been waiting for the whole time. So it's sometimes easy and sometimes not as easy. Like if I'm dealing with thoughts or feelings that are harder to process. I'll give you guys an example. I wrote a dance piece with a friend of mine that was sort of about being a lady in our society and how there are some things that you're supposed to be that conflict with each other. So we wrote this dance piece that was like a choreography piece together. And I was coming at it from the costume perspective and she was coming at it from the dance perspective. And we wanted the costume to portray a very specific idea and the dance piece to portray a specific idea. And we obviously were working with a piece of music. But it was hard because some of the emotions, thoughts, and feelings that we had regarding the way that we had been treated culturally, those were difficult to deal with emotions. And sometimes they are difficult to deal with emotions. Sometimes it flows right out of you because it's something that brings you joy, but sometimes it's not. And our art isn't just there for joyful times. It's also there for times when it's not as joyful. So it was difficult. We procrastinated a couple of times. Like we would sit down to work and then we would be like, do you want chili cheese fries? Because I want chili cheese fries. And then we'd go get chili cheese fries and laugh for a little bit and then come back to it. But yeah, it is I think some of the times that I have felt that sort of procrastination or the not wanting to deal with the negative emotions things, once I actually buckled down and started doing the work, those are some of the things that I found to be the most fulfilling, or where I had the most positive interactions with others from them. When someone said, you know, I appreciate your perspective, and I have that same perspective, and it really made me feel heard and not alone, and things like that. Those are the things that I live for in this business. So that procrastination was there, but it was totally worth it in the end to actually get the work done. So begin the work is the next step. I think that, Paul, you kind of touched on this earlier about like doing a play reading, like showing your work to a smaller group of people. I think, do you guys feel this when you do a piece or something? Sometimes like with a play, you just jump in with both feet. Like you're going to perform your play. There's going to be an audience there, and it's going to happen. Normally they'll have like a dress rehearsal or something where you can ease in. But when I'm creating my own thing, I kind of ease in. I'll show it to a small, like 1 or 2 people at the beginning as I'm developing it. And then when I feel like I'm closer to the end, I'll expand the audience a little bit, but not be like, not throw the doors wide open, but maybe just like let a couple people in. Do you guys have any related experiences to that? Do you, I don't know.
I mean, definitely the procrastination. No, the diving in head first, I mean, or feet first, or whichever first. Yeah, it's, I think what you said about it depends on the piece. I'm working on a few different shows right now, and one of the several that I've put on the back burner are the ones that I feel most strongly about, that I want to get it right. And I think a lot of the feedback that we've gotten, a lot of the questions that we've gotten have been like, how do I do this? How do I get this right? You know, right? What is the way to do this? Because especially when you're, you know, a younger person and you are in school, you are taught, you know, if you want to learn something, there are steps that you take, and there are classes that you learn things, and then you do them. And that is not untrue of artistic endeavors, but you also, it coexists with, sometimes you gotta trial and error. You gotta go and be wrong. And I think that's very, very important. I don't know if that directly answered your question.
Oh, we're all just here to table talk. We're talking it out. So it was exactly perfect.
Great.
I relate to the procrastination as well, as I think many people do, but I think how do I say this? I think there's a very healthy way to procrastinate. I think there's certain creative ideas that, you know, especially if you don't have a specific timeline for them, like you shouldn't start it before you're ready or before those ideas are processed. And I really struggle sometimes with stress, especially before big things I have coming up. Right now is a time that I'm feeling a little bit of stress, just because I know I have a lot of big projects coming up, and I can tell that that's affecting me. But I also think that, you know, in the time I have right before a big project starts, where I do have a little bit more time to prepare, to have those ideas. Last week, I feel like I'm out all over the place, but last week my family and I took a vacation, and I was really excited about it. I was really glad that I did it. It was wonderful. My point is, there was a small part of me that was like, I don't know if I can take a week to relax right now, because even though I've been at home and for a while didn't have a lot to do because of quarantine, you know, now that things are starting to adjust, it's been different. But I found actually that the place I was in Wisconsin, there was lots of nature around. I really had time to spend with my family, to be outside, to just to actually let myself relax. And I had more creative ideas during that time because I was able to let myself de-stress, not distress. But I found that time was really helpful. And so like if you know, you have a day where, you know, like, oh, I don't necessarily have to get anything done today, don't let that stress you out. Sometimes the creativity happens when you least expect it to, when you just have time to be. So right now I don't have time to be anymore because I have a lot to get done, Yeah, but I got a lot of inspiration from having a little bit of that time last week. So that was my addition.
That's great. That's awesome. Miss Katie, you ever procrastinate?
I always. We're
doing it right
guys.
now.
Yeah. You know. No, always. Like, seriously, it's one of my biggest flaws in life is like my procrastination. I was an honors kid all throughout my high school career, and yet I was the biggest procrastinator ever. Yeah, no, I think that as I've grown older, I've tried to give myself deadlines when it comes to project, because first of all, there is a deadline for most of my projects because, like, for instance, camp, we have to order music by a certain time. Molly needs enough time to actually choreograph. Juan Carlos needs to be able to learn the music that we're going to be doing. So, like, I had to have a timeline for myself to get it done. Like, Amber helped me keep it on track. So, like, it's all about, okay, well, I know I have to be done by this time. Now, when I say that I procrastinate, I started the process of picking things back in like beginning of the year when Amber contacted me about the job. Immediately started looking through my library that I've created over the years and just started listening, adding music to the library to listen to. And it literally, we finally picked the numbers like maybe 3 weeks ago for sure. Like, we nailed it down for sure 3 weeks ago.
Four
like
weeks, yeah.
I've been working on it for how long, but yet we didn't nail it down until like 3 weeks ago or whatever. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I procrastinate a lot. Give yourself a deadline if it's something of importance that does need a deadline. That is before your actual deadline for like your job. Like, have it done before that deadline. That'd be good.
What?
But I know, crazy. But yeah, but when it comes to like sharing your work, I, as a self-conscious human who struggles with anxiety, I get nervous when I share it. I get nervous when we are in music rehearsals and I have a solo. Doesn't even matter how big that solo. It could be a one-line solo. When it comes time for me to get up in front of my peers and my coworkers to sing it for the first time, I am nervous. Yeah, simple as that. I'm like, all right. But yeah, no, it really is about like, mine is controlling my anxiety and making sure that I have a plan in place because that helps with my anxiety. So I don't know.
That's a great no. I think that's a really smart thing is because this is a nerve-wracking thing, that plan, even if it's completely arbitrary, there's something about structure that tells our brain like, well, this is, and I mean, we also have to have flexibility for if things do not go according to that plan. When you said set deadlines for yourself, I can't remember who said it, but they said, I love setting deadlines. I love the whirring sound they make as they breeze by.
Nailed it.
So you have to allow yourself a soft deadline, but I think that's incredibly smart, is making a plan, even if it's not super thorough, even if it's completely arbitrary and not based on something very specific. It goes back to that organization thing. Frequently when I'm stressed about a million things and I'm procrastinating, we talked a couple weeks ago about making a list. And if I say like, I have so much to do, I'm going to write down everything I need to do. It's so much. And then it's like 4 things, So I think that's so helpful. There was something else you talked about, Katie, and I didn't write down on my notepad.
No.
Procrastination, deadlines.
Amber has something.
No, I don't.
Oh,
I was just
though
reacting
about the stress and the fear and the anxiety. And this was the most freeing thing I think that I ever learned. I used to be a very smart and critical person. And by that, I mean just that I was someone who I tried very hard to learn as much as I could. And so if someone asked, if someone I was working with someone and they were, if we were working together, I would imagine that they would want, my honest opinion. They'd want me to work with them. And it goes back to what Miss Amber said. about sometimes you need to ask, I just need support right now. But this is actually advice from Mr. Stevenson himself, that he says, anytime you are talking to me about something of mine that you have just seen, the first thing out of your mouth should always be, I loved it. Even if you don't mean it. In that moment, all I need, because I've just bared something very personal and vulnerable. So when you're talking about being in rehearsal and being with, as much as you plan, you can still have that anxiety. And so just to understand that others have that as well. I'm going back to previous points now, I guess. I'm totally all over the place. But yeah.
We all are today. It's great. We love it. We're talking about the creative process today. Of course, we're all over the place.
Of course, exactly. So yeah, just that putting that positive energy towards others frequently can help quell feelings of anxiety in yourself. Did I use that word correctly?
Yes, that's perfect. Quench, quell. Beautiful. Yeah. So one of the cool things about all y'all being kids, when all y'all are kids, is that you have this amazing resource that we are coming to you through the internet. So when we talk about the ability to publish your material or publish your art, you have the ability to publish your photographs or pictures of your sculptures or videos of your dance pieces or a reading of your play or even like whatever you guys are writing. You have the ability to do that. And if you are a performer and you're trying to perform, there are venues available that you can rent. There's sometimes like multi-use venues that are available at a very reasonable price. Places like the Goshen Theater, we have plans for a flexible lobby cabaret space that is going to be extremely reasonable. Like extremely reasonable, so that young artists and artists who want to do small projects and shows and music will be able to do that. Like, little flute recital, little Christmas music, a little tiny musical. So there are places like that you guys can have your art be showcased where you can publish it yourself, or you can put it out there and like hope that other people will help you and help publish your material as well. What are you like all the table talkers? What are your favorite places, either online or in the real world, to get your art out there?
YouTube.
YouTube is huge.
All of my senior recital from college, it's all there. I've got reels up for acting reels, like scenes that I have done. I don't know. Like, it's all on YouTube. It's on my website. I share it on Facebook. Our podcasts, they're through YouTube. We share them on our Facebooks.
Yep. What do you think, Paul? What do you have?
I'm old, so Facebook is is great for me. But specifically for sharing music, I love SoundCloud. It's great. If you have music in your heart and you want to put it out there, or you want to explore music of just independent artists that you've never heard, SoundCloud is fantastic for that. And again, I then post it to Facebook. But also I use Facebook when I'm writing something. Sometimes I don't know where I want to go. Or I was writing a song a long time ago. It's called When I Grow Up. And I know there are a lot of other songs with that title, but darn it, I was first.
Probably not.
Probably not, but it's a song called When I Grow Up, and we started running out of ideas, and my brother and I just posted on our Facebook pages, hey everybody, what is something that you want to do when you grow up, or on your bucket list, and we got so many responses, and pretty much all of them ended up in the song, and really proud of how that turned out. So also for crowdsourcing artistic ideas.
That's great. Any places you like to publish, for lack of a better term, your work, Miss Molly?
I have to agree with Miss Katie about YouTube and my website. There was a little bit of time that I was trying to make some vlogs about my college musical theater experience. I think some of them are still up. So if you want to learn about a day in the life of like a musical theater major at Western. I did some of that a few years ago. But yeah, I really enjoy using YouTube to publish my own work and also like to see what other people are up to. I loved creating my website because I can make it specific to me and like my personality and like what I'm selling as an artist, what I want to be out in the world. That's like my brand. I know we've like kind of talked about that before. Yeah, I'm on social media. I do Instagram and all of those sorts of things. And I found that that has been a good tool to just sort of like I try and make it as authentic to myself as possible. So, you know, if an agent comes across my website and then from there goes to my Instagram, they can kind of get a glimpse of who I am and what my personality might be like, what my other interests are. So, yeah.
One of the great things about using YouTube for a conduit for your art specifically is like, let's say you have a series of projects where you have thoughts or feelings about the stuff that's happening in the world right now. Like if the isolation is getting to you, you could put a playlist together on YouTube that is just videos concerning that topic, almost like a little gallery show. So it could be like, oh, I wrote these songs, I took these photographs, I like put this writing together and I'm reading my chapter out loud, like whatever it is. You can put those playlists together so that folks can also be exposed to your art and the themes within your art that you're trying to communicate, because theme is so important, and what your message is, what you're trying to say, because art can be beautiful and can be an exercise in math and science and all of that. But it is, in my opinion, at its best when it's an exercise in math and science that also has a connection to something deeply emotional. So that's one little pointer there, is you can make those playlists. I think those are great. There's also ways to self-publish books, to also have like them like self-printed so that you could like take them to local bookstores. I know in Goshen we have the Fables books. They sell books by local authors. So there's all sorts of options for those sorts of things. So yeah, that's publishing your works for other people to see. I think that that about wraps up our discussion today about how to use your voice to create your art. Again, there are so many ways and creative outlets for you guys. If you have any questions or want us to elaborate on any of the stuff that we talked about, there's an easy way to get those questions answered. Drop those in the comments here on YouTube, or put them in the comments on the video on Facebook, or even message any of us or message Goshen Theater. I believe all of us are on the Goshen Theater page, and we will see those questions pop up through the messenger. So do that and we will answer those questions for you. This has been a great episode. Any closing thoughts, Miss Molly?
Oh,
You're first.
I don't have any floating around right at the moment, but yeah, just enjoy the process of being creative, I guess, is my main thing. I sometimes as an artist get again, I'll just use the word stressed about the final product, having everything ready for when it's done, but just really enjoy the process. Like that is where like beautiful ideas come from. So that's my parting thought for the day. That's
great. How about you, Paul?
Get messy.
Get messy. I love it. That's our t-shirt. Goshen Theater Drama Club. Get messy. That'd be fun. Miss Katie?
Just do what you love and like be authentically and unapologetically you. Like just whatever you decide to create, let it be authentically you.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
Little song from Paul. All right, well, next week for episode 11, I need one more finger. Yeah, Molly wins. Next week for episode 11, we're going to be talking about your health as an artist, and your bodily health, your mental health, your vocal health, etc. Miss Molly, you want to say a couple of words about next week's episode? Because Miss Molly is in charge of next week's episode. That's what I just decided.
Well, great. I'm actually very excited about it. I feel like this is like a time that it's like helpful for me to like talk about these things too. So yeah, we're going to talk about, so obviously if you're a performer, you're going to be on stage a lot. You need that stamina, breath support, staying hydrated, nutrition. If you're into fitness, I do a lot of fitness stuff. I'll probably talk about that. I'll have an outline that is a lot more thought through than my thoughts spoken out loud at this moment. But yeah, we're also, I'm sure we'll delve into like making sure that mentally you're staying healthy and just health as a whole. It's not just, you know, working out and eating vegetables. It's a lot deeper than that, especially for an artist. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
That's awesome. We're super excited to discuss all those aspects of being a healthy artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, from all of us to all of you, thank you for watching. A special thanks to Goshen Noon Kiwanis for supporting Goshen Theater Drama Club. We literally could not do this without you. No metaphor there at all. Like, it would not happen if you guys didn't support us. So thank you so much to Goshen Noon Kiwanis. The deadline for enrollment has passed for this year's Goshen Theater Drama Club summer program. But keep an eye on the Goshen Theater website. We have some fun things planned going into the later part of the summer and into the fall. And some like sort of mail-in things and some stuff you might be able to order to get yourself some resources and still improve yourself as an artist even while school is out. So keep an eye out for all of that, and make sure that you tune in next week, Friday, for episode 11 of Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks, where we talk about being a healthy artist. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we can't wait to see you again next week. Bye.